Hi, this is the video for lecture 2 on connective tissue. So, connective tissue and connective tissue proper, it's based on Martini's chapter 3. Here are the learning objectives, and they are divided up by subject. I invite you throughout this lecture to keep track of what is being discussed. We start with primary tissue types, then we talk about connective tissue in general, connective tissue fibers, um, connective tissue proper, major types and subtypes. So just kind of try to keep it organized. Here's the learning objectives for primary tissue types, connective tissue in general, then connective tissue proper, which includes connective tissue fibers, then connective tissue proper, major types and subtypes, and then a bit on fascia and embryology. Here's your drawing assignment. 1, 2, 3 types of connective tissue, and then another 4, 5, 6 types of connective tissue, which we're going to learn about. Okay, so one review slide, just to remind you that anatomical structures and the functions of the structures have developed together over billions of years, and therefore the structures and the functions are closely related. And this is a nice picture. It shows you that the first cells developed 3.8 billion years ago. Then more complex cells developed about 2 billion years ago, and so on and so on and so on until about 1.8 million years ago, humans developed. So there was a lot of time for structures and functions to develop together. There was a structure that was good at performing a function, then it would be chosen evolutionarily, and it would persist. Okay, so primary tissue types. Here's the new stuff. There are 4 different types, and we're going to learn them in this order: connective tissue, epithelial tissue, muscle tissue, and nervous tissue. Connective tissue connects anatomical structures. It provides support, it fills internal spaces, it stores energy, it transports materials. Then epithelial tissues cover surfaces, line cavities and tracts, and produce secretions from glands. Muscle tissue moves the body. Nervous tissue conducts nervous impulses and carries information. And of course, this lecture is going to be about connective tissue. So connective tissue. Here's this little part of the 4 primary tissue types, connective tissue. So connective tissue includes a very diverse group of tissues. There is connective tissue proper, which we're going to learn right now. Then there's supporting connective tissue, which includes cartilage and bone, which we're going to learn very soon. And then fluid connective tissue, blood and lymph, which we're going to learn in Unit 4, so in a while. Connective tissue proper, supporting connective tissue, and fluid connective tissue all contain 3 components. Those are cells, which are relatively few in the tissue, fibers, which sometimes may be absent, but we'll learn a lot about fibers today, and ground substance. The arrangement of the 3 components and the structure of the 3 types of connective tissue varies enormously. And the function of the 3 types of connective tissue also varies enormously. And of course, if you think of connective tissue proper, which you probably don't know what that is, but we're going to learn today, compared to cartilage, bone, blood, and lymph, you can see that connective tissue is a very diverse group of tissues. Let's begin learning about connective tissue proper, which is the subject of this lecture. So connective tissue proper has cells, fibers, and ground substance, just like all the other types of connective tissue. It's found throughout the body, and it has many functions. This is a picture of a particular kind of connective tissue proper, areolar connective tissue. So it's just one of 5 kinds, but it's showing you that in there are cells, there are these long strips, which are fibers, and then there's a background that's sort of tannish orangey in the back, that's ground substance. So these are cells that may be in connective tissue proper. They may be fixed or they may be wandering. Here's the table. We'll talk about them a little bit. So fixed cells, they're called fixed because they are fixed in place or they stay in place in the connective tissue proper. Whereas wandering cells enter and leave connective tissue proper. So there are mesenchymal cells, fibroblasts, and fibrocytes that produce and repair connective tissue proper. Then there are macrophages, adipocytes, and melanocytes that have special functions. And I have circled here the mesenchymal cells, fibroblasts, and fibrocytes, and they're all about producing and repairing connective tissue proper. And then you can read the functions of the other cells, but I'll go over everything in more detail. So mesenchymal cells, they are stem cells that divide and differentiate into fibroblasts. Fibroblasts are the most common cells in connective tissue proper. They're the only cells that are always present in all kinds of connective tissue. And fibroblasts are active cells that are producing protein fibers. So here in our picture of areolar connective tissue, I have arrows pointing to the fibroblasts, the mesenchymal cell, and the fibrocyte. So this would be the stem cell, the active cell, and we'll find out the less active cell. So fibroblasts differentiate into fibrocytes, and fibrocytes are the second most common cells in connective tissue proper. And fibrocytes are less active than fibroblasts. They maintain the protein fibers. And as I mentioned, I have an arrow pointing over here to a fibrocyte on the left. So you can look at them, in the real slides, actually telling apart the different cells is not something that is at all easy to do. They look a lot like each other in the right actual slide picture compared to the cartoon, where they have a mesenchymal cell in blue and a fibroblast in sort of pinkish over here, and then a fibrocyte in a sort of lavenderish over here. So, you can kind of color code them apart in the diagram, but in the real slide, they kind of look similar. Okay, so those are three of the fixed cells. And then there are fixed macrophages, and those are immune cells that engulf bacteria and other pathogens. They're the frontline defenders against attackers. They send out chemicals that attract wandering cells into the connective tissue. And here in the cartoon, they're showing you in kind of darkish blue, a fixed macrophage. Adipocytes are cells that store lipids for energy. They're also called fat cells. They're pretty much always, drawn as yellow cells in cartoons. So there's some big plump adipocytes there in our areolar connective tissue. I'm sorry, my cat wants to be in the. You want to get in there? I don't know. She's bugging me. Then melanocytes, the last of our fixed cells that we're going to talk about, they synthesize melanin, which is a brown pigment that protects the skin from harmful ultraviolet radiation. And that ends fixed cells and now wandering cells. Wandering cells include free macrophages, mast cells, lymphocytes, neutrophils, and eosinophils. All of these are cells of the immune system. And also, actually, fixed macrophages are cells of the immune system. And we're going to go back to them and learn more about them when we do our lymphatic system lecture way in Unit 4. The function of immune cells is to defend the body against pathogens. Pathogen is any kind of virus or organism that makes us sick. And here's a bigger picture showing the fixed macrophage, the free macrophage, a mast cell, and a lymphocyte. Okay.